Of course, the first events of Pinehurst Barbecue Festival get underway Friday with the High on the Hog gourmet dinner. They conclude Sunday with the Christopher Prieto Pitmaster Invitational. It promises more barbecue bites that are guaranteed to be gourmet quality goodness. And Ashley Christensen is one of the talented North Carolina chefs and entrepreneurs bringing something really cool to Sunday's menu. We're excited to welcome Ashley to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Ashley, thanks so much for taking time to join us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, well, so for folks in our audience who don't know, Ashley's the owner and operator of the Ashley Christensen Restaurant Group. It includes 6 different ventures in Raleigh. They run the gamut from upscale dining experience to more casual venues, event spaces, catering operations, and we're going to find out more about some of that stuff in our conversation. But first, Ashley, I want to talk to you about Poole's Diner. I know it's a Raleigh landmark since 1945, and you've been in charge since 2007, but there's been some changes over the past few months. Tell me what's new at Poole's Diner.
Yeah, certainly. So, handful of years ago, we purchased the building next door. So I don't own the building that Poole's is in, excuse me, but really bought the building next door to protect Poole's. It sits in the middle of kind of horseshoe of land and or property, and it's some of the we love just the history of the building and think keeping that building around is really important. So we opened up a pizza joint called Poolside Pies next to Poole's. It was a really excellent restaurant. We had a lot of fun. We were really proud of what we were doing, but it opened about 6 months before the pandemic. And after the pandemic, it just really struggled to find its footing. It was a really interesting time in downtown. So we ultimately made the decision to expand Poole's into that space. And we did that. Our first day of service, we moved Poole's over into that space right next door. And our first day of service was Halloween of 2024. So we've taken the time since then to just carefully take the original diner apart and kind of really thoughtfully put it back together and just get to put some, after nearly 18 years of operation for me, that was my first restaurant. It has been really amazing to get to show some love to the space itself. So really, really exciting time for us. We've just reopened the space. The 2 spaces are connected by a walk-through in the building now. And there's a beautiful double horseshoe bar in the space, and it's a classic. You don't really see them that often anymore because of the real estate that they take up. So it's beautiful. It's the original Formica top. It's the celery green kind of textured Formica. Lots of elbow rubs in the in the top of it based on many years of service in the community. So it's very exciting for us. We were able to do some things like add sound dampening into the space. It was a really what I in my early years like to describe as vibrant, but now that I'm a little older, I'm like, I can't hear a thing in here. We got to fix this. So we've just over the last couple weeks opened up the double horseshoe bar, and the original back area dining room there we're utilizing as a private event space that seats comfortably around 55 people. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's got to be great to kind of polish off the baby as you talked about it, your first restaurant there. And I know it's exciting news for you guys. And of course, that restaurant helped earn you the James Beard Award for Outstanding Chef in 2019, the Best Chef Southeast in 2014. And now it's getting a bit of a facelift. Can't wait to talk more about those venues in your portfolio and the Pinehurst Barbecue Festival. First, an invitation for our audience is visit us online at lowslowbbqshow.com and find out more about North Carolina's top pitmasters, including Christopher Prieto from Pine Barbecue and Prime STQ, Matthew Register of Southern Smoke Barbecue, Lewis Donald, Sweet Lou's, Adam Hughes, Old Colony Smokehouse. And while you're at lowslowbbqshow.com, be sure to sign up for our newsletter. We'll deliver the latest Carolina barbecue news to your inbox Tuesday mornings. Of course, visit the blog at lowslowbbqshow.com for barbecue reviews, recipes, and more details about that Pinehurst Barbecue Festival. And that's where we've got all the events, the menus, and the pitmasters like today's guest, Ashley Christensen. And Ashley, before we get back to Pinehurst, let's go back to your restaurant group, Ashley Christensen Restaurants. Why don't you give us an overview of what it is and maybe the philosophy, what it entails there in Raleigh?
Sure. So we now have three restaurants and a private event space. And we've spent the last year kind of deciding whether we either needed to get bigger or we needed to hone in and kind of tighten up. And I made the choice to tighten up, which has been really, for me, the right thing and gives me a lot of connection to the work that we're doing. So
Mm.
we have, of course, first is Poole's Diner. Following that, we opened about 4 years later. So I believe it was 2011. And that'll be Beasley's, which is our fried chicken joint. Now that's also full service, full bar. It's, just really delicious, approachable comfort food.
Yeah.
And just recently, we were working to tweak that recipe and get our fried chicken a little crispier. And we just happened upon a new recipe that has us at a fully gluten-free fried chicken, which is
Oh,
very exciting.
wow.
Yeah, so it's I think it's the best fried chicken we've ever made. The crunch is incredible, and it's 100% rice flour, so it's opened up a whole new audience for us,
Sure.
and it's really exciting to get to serve that part of the community. Their excitement for it has been like super touching to our
Hmm.
entire staff, so
Yeah.
really fun. And then following that, so in within that space, we have a private dining room, just like we do now at Pools as well. Down the street, our youngest restaurant just turned 10, and that's Death and Taxes. And that building, the history of that space is that it was a funeral home followed by a series of banks, hence the name. And on floors 2 and 3 of that building, we have a private event space called Bridge Club. Yeah, so
Wow.
exciting stuff. We're actually right in the middle right now. We're doing a little bit of renovation in Death and Taxes for the week. And we
Hmm.
happen to have, as we enter our second decade, we happen to have a new executive chef who has just taken the reins. And so this week, while they're renovating floor one, we've taken him up to floor 2 of the private event space, Bridge Club, and he's cooking sort of a welcome and introduction menu for the community over the next 4 days. And I sat for it last night and it was absolutely stunning. His name is Matthew Banus, and we're really, really excited for him to take us into the next decade.
Yeah, that's big news and into the next decade. Now, you've been there for a little while, and I'm sure you've seen the Raleigh restaurant scene evolve during that time, your
Sure.
time kind of in the trenches there. Yeah, how would you describe the modern scene for restaurants around Raleigh now, especially as your businesses fit into it?
Yeah. I think it's changed a little bit. I think that we've seen downtown is still a beautiful, wonderful place to be, but the community has grown outside of downtown a little bit. So you're
Mm,
seeing some of the surrounding neighborhoods kind of pop up with these really interesting restaurants, and I really love it. I think it just adds more character and flavor to the community as a whole. So
yeah,
that's super exciting. Where we're located at the first restaurant, we're right across from Red Hat Amphitheater. So some really great live music,
right.
which to me go, hand in hand with great food and hospitality. So we have this season and one more season of Red Hat Amphitheater in its current space, and then it'll move about a block away. So we've been successful in keeping that in downtown Raleigh, which is exciting. But the convention center will build a second building in the former home of Red Hat Amphitheater.
Hmm.
So I think we'll see more energy pumped into seeing more visitors, and more visitors in Raleigh always results in more people who ultimately move to Raleigh.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for the community as a whole. But restaurant wise, I think we're seeing and hearing about a lot of new exciting things brewing as far as folks expanding into second projects in downtown,
Mm.
and just new folks venturing in. And then for us, we are really just enjoying being in some of the spots that we chose long ago to kind of activate corners of Raleigh. So,
Hmm.
Pools was, of course, the first restaurant, and everything about that just made sense for me. It's a 2,000 square foot restaurant. Just feels like home, And then these other buildings are such interesting buildings in downtown. But one of the things that was really important to me is that they were in sections of downtown at that time that weren't tremendously activated
Mm.
for the restaurant community and the following that brings. And so it's been a real, awesome experience to watch those corners become more, just populated with retail and visitors. So it's a really neat community for sure. But I think we're in a little bit of a turn right now where we're
Mm.
seeing a little bit of a change of the tides, if you will. And yeah, I'm here for it and excited to see where it takes us as we, move into the years ahead.
Yeah, definitely got to be cool to have, an integral role in creating some of those thriving little areas that might not have been so thriving before. And of course, when you got a people, you got to have food, and when there's people and food, other things kind of pop up around it. And talking about the group as a whole, which one of those aligns with the Pinehurst Barbecue Festival, or do they, or how do you
Sure.
fit with barbecue?
Yeah, it's funny to I think I would be like a visiting the title of pitmaster for the day. And actually, my goal that day is to be doing something unique with smoke versus, all of our friends who work so hard day in and day out stoking those coals. So
Yeah.
Death and Taxes is our wood fire restaurant.
Hmm.
And I, got into that exciting expression of the kitchen after a trip to Uruguay, and just got to, we just really connected with that area and dug in and got to, visit all these restaurants and cook with a bunch of different folks who Francis Mallman had trained. And, what just struck me at that time was there was so much going on with like molecular gastronomy.
Yeah.
And at the time it was like, it's really exciting and it's almost like intoxicating, all the interesting things that you can do. But
Right.
for me, all that stuff only makes sense if it makes something more practical, more delicious.
Mm.
I'm really like a comfort food cook. I love the classics. I love taking, the most classic recipes and just kind of pulling them apart and thinking about, how tweaking of the details can make it something even, more than is historically expected from a classic dish. So I love that. But in that trip to Uruguay, I just was so romanced by this idea of like, forget about all this crazy technology. Everyone here is cooking every single thing over an open fire.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
it's like, we know this in cooking, right? When we say something is simple, it's actually refers to it being pretty complicated.
Right. Especially
And,
with fire.
I think generally simple just means what we think of as simple in food just means it's honest and it's transparent and it's,
Mm.
there's not room to hide and under the sauce or the little tricks and such. So I love that style of cuisine for that. And so being in that place and seeing, whole animals slow roasting over coals all day, and then,
Mm.
being with a crew of folks who were taking cast iron pots. If we're going to make dessert for the thing we're doing, we're baking in a cast iron pot directly on the coals and finding all kinds of fun ways to char vegetables and, do these beautiful room temperature dishes that sort of sing of the flavor of the fire, but also have this really great connection to the temperature of the earth from which they've been harvested. So
Right.
that is really like, for me, that's what fire cooking is in my, kind of repertoire. But I may cook a whole hog once a year, and I try and get better at it every
Yeah.
time I do it, and I love it. And it's for me, that's a really great way to slow down, to like
Hmm.
be super super present for the process. But what we're making on Sunday is a dish that is actually going to be, the smoked element is going to be smoked tomato. So we're doing some, just deep smoke on tomatoes and then roasting those down further, folding that into like an emulsified dressing that's
Ooh.
going to wrap around jumbo lump crab meat
Oh.
and be served over these little uh, uh, portions of fried grits. So we take, just some local corn grits, coarse ground. We cook those until they're nice and tender. We fold in a little bit of cheese and then we chill
Mm.
that. And then we fry them until we toss them in cornmeal one more time, fry them until they're crispy. So they're crispy on the outside, creamy on the inside. And then this cool, um, smoky crab salad over the top. So a little unexpected, and
Wow. Holy
and
cow. Now, I
I
go to
think that's why Christopher asked me. He didn't want me to come and like do a you know acceptable job of smoking pork shoulders. He knew I was going to do something that would be a little different from all of the amazing folks who are going to be 24 hours over the coals. So
right. And when I look at the Pinehurst Barbecue Festival.com, I go under the Christopher Prieto Pitmaster Invitational. It says smoked blue crab and grits.
yeah.
All that stuff that you just said I mean, it's smoked blue crab and grits, but I
Yeah.
mean, that's next level smoked blue crab and grits.
Well, and that's, I also love, titling a dish that way. And they're definitely going to get that from the dish, but they're going
Uh-huh.
to get so much more. And, I love watching somebody take a bite of something and then, looking up and going, what is going on in there?
Right.
So that's always my goal is just to, keep the promise of what someone was expecting and that they're comforted by, and then just to like, you know, blow the lid off of it a little bit. And it makes for a really fun conversation. And, I like to watch people's minds kind of travel down a little path of nostalgia and how that might remind them of something they had at some point at the coast or,
Uh-huh.
or at a family reunion or whatever it might be.
Sure. Speaking of nostalgia, let's take your own little trip down there. How'd you get started in the cooking world? Now, you sound like you're inspired from a lot of things, as a lot of people are as they grow through life, or Uruguay, for instance. But how'd you get
Yeah.
started?
Yeah, I got started because both of my folks were just great cooks. And for both of them, it was just that was how they would wind down from the
Mm.
work day and work life. And so my mom just turned 78 and she still works. She's a real estate agent. And I grew up in Kernersville, which is, just about 90 miles west of Raleigh.
Sure.
And my father was a truck driver when I was a
Mm.
kid. So he would two things. He would come home and be inspired by something he'd eaten on the road. And then when he would come home, he would be like home for a while,
Hmm.
So he'd be gone for a while and he'd be home for a while. And he had these two giant organic gardens and he just loved to work in his gardens and to cook. And he and my mom just cooked so differently from one another, but so beautifully together. And it was such a cool thing to just always have around me, watching the way they moved around each other and
Hmm.
watching one of them pass a spoon to the other and just music playing and seeing how they in what it meant to them to be able to just spend time in the kitchen and spend time in the gardens. And so my chores as a kid were among other things, of course, were working in the gardens for
Mm.
me and my brother, and picking on the weekends. And I still kind of itch from the thought of like picking okra off the vines, but I still love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they would entertain, and they weren't like luxury entertainers. They would just like cook some things and play music and make cocktails. And so I just grew up with a sense of I feel very connected to like the gestures that people would make when the way their faces would change, the way their body language would open up when they had a bite of something that took them, as you just said, kind of took them on that trip, on that journey of
Yeah.
nostalgia. And my father was also famous for whenever someone would say like, oh, I don't like that, like, or like, or no thanks, I don't eat eggplant, or I don't eat okra. Before they could finish the sentence, my dad had like thrown it into their mouths, and they were like, oh, I didn't realize it was like this.
Yeah. You haven't had this eggplant.
Yeah, yeah. And in my work, I love when someone comes in and they say, oh, I don't like beets, and then they have the beet salad and they're like, well, I just hadn't had beets like this before.
Right.
That always feels like a little victory. But when I went off to college, I think a lot of us do this. We uh, live in a way that and I don't want to say I took it for granted, but I don't think I knew how meaningful all that was to me until you move away from it.
Hmm.
And so the ways that I started to, kind of subconsciously reconnect with my comforts, where I started like, I'd ask my mom to send me some cookbooks, or I would
Yeah.
pick up a food magazine, and I started cooking in my little apartment at college, and ultimately, it all kind of I picked it up pretty fast, and my friends caught on, and they would all chip in. And my father was injured in the Vietnam War, and I went to college on a veteran scholarship.
Hmm.
And then I refer to this as like my second scholarship, which was all my friends always pitching in and being like, okay, let's have a dinner party. What are you going to cook this time? And
Right.
I would teach myself to cook something. I would like go to the bookstore and look up a recipe. And that was before, really before like camera phones and us, the internet was happening, but I went
Sure.
to college in 1994, and so it was like kind of brand new, and so we weren't really hadn't figured out all the research, and it wasn't all available yet, so it was really about going and putting my nose in a book and picking
Hmm.
something that I wanted to teach myself how to cook. And so would we have these dinner parties, and I just fell in love with that feeling that came right back to me, which was watching how food made people feel.
Yeah.
And I also really enjoyed like the edge of when everyone was about to show up, and that like adrenaline that's like, oh, everyone's almost here, and you're doing the last touches, and that feeling is exactly the same feeling as when you're getting ready to open the doors at a restaurant. So I have a lot of gratitude for growing up in such what I think is a really rich experience
Hmm.
of the plate and the experience of sharing in food with your family being very meaningful and very important.
Yeah, and obviously there's a lot of motivation behind what you've done there, connections to you personally and your history. Eh, with that in mind, do you ever think about those awards, those James Beard Awards, and is that ever in your headspace, or is that just something that happens?
Well, I was telling this story the other day to a friend who is, kind of like thinking about like how do these things happen? And I said,
Hmm.
the first time I got made like the semifinalist list, I almost fell out of my chair. Like it was so unexpected. I had never had a publicist or anything like that. I
Hmm.
actually, at this point in my career, after the pandemic, I had a publicist as kind of a project for just my personal brand for about 18 months. But that's the only time that I've had that experience.
Hmm.
And for my whole career, it's been about just kind of doing this thing we love. And my marketing budget has always been doing events on the road. So like going to do either festivals or charitable events. And that to me, it was really important because I know what a special town Raleigh is.
Yeah.
And so going on the road and like meeting people and talking, and hearing people say like, oh, you're from Raleigh. Yeah, I've been there before. It's been a long time. I'm going to come
Hmm.
back, and like, so people starting to visit Raleigh more often and to come see us and then to talk about that around the country. And I really think, that's how that happened for us, and it's really spectacular. It brings so much energy, not just to the restaurant and the team of folks, that are a part of our team, but
Hmm.
they're a part of our group, but also the community. Like the amount of pride that my city and my state had when that happened. It's such a rush of energy,
Hmm.
and I think when we look at things that way, where instead of it being like, well, I wonder why she got that, instead it's like, hey, we got this, and um, being able to stand on a stage like that and let people know I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina. You guys
Yeah.
need to come see us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that stuff is the recognition is incredibly meaningful. Um, like so many people, it's certainly not why we do what we do, but
Hmm.
it's nice to know that for everything that all the energy and focus that we put into this work, that it can come back be celebrated for all the team members who are investing in it, as well as our community, who are our greatest spokespeople. Those are watching, one of my favorite views is seeing someone realize in the restaurants that a person across from them has never been to the restaurant before, and having a regular guest say, "Hey, is this your first time here?" And like
Right.
folks having that sense of ownership, and that to me that is success in a restaurant, when your community has this sense of pride for a place that feels like they're a part of it. So yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned the events that you got involved with the marketing, and I know you're involved with the Frankie Lemon Foundation and
Yep.
the Triangle Wine Experience, and of course our buddy Lawrence Barbecue and the Getting Piggy with it. So a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
good food events going on there at the Frankie Lemon Foundation. A good thing, and working for a good cause. Obviously now you're hooked up with the Pinehurst Barbecue Festival, a little bit of different focus, but maybe tell me about how you got connected, and when you go out to an event, whether it's this or Frankie Lemon or something else, what are you hoping to bring to the audience, and what do you want to take away as we kind of wrap it up here?
Sure. Yeah. So, Chris, someone introduced me to Chris Prieto, and just we hit it off immediately. And
Hmm.
I loved watching. He walked me through his restaurant. We met at his place, and I sat down and ate, and it was beef rib Friday,
Oh boy,
and
good
just
day.
like blew my mind. Now I tell
Yeah.
you, the meats are incredible there,
Hmm.
but the sides and vegetables and desserts, there's so much energy in everything that graces that menu, and I love
Yeah.
that. Like, it should all be important, and that's what makes people feel considered, loved, and cared for when
Hmm.
they're in your space, is that every way that you can be there for them, and in a hospitality sense, that all of it matters.
Hmm.
And so yeah, Chris and I hit it off, and I then asked him to get involved with me on a few different things. I think he had already been a supporter of the Southern Smoke Foundation,
Hmm.
and we asked him to be a part of a dinner we were hosting for some fundraising to bring their mental health access initiative to North Carolina. And then with Frankie Lemon, I asked if he would, come out and be a part of what is now known as Triangle Wine and Food Experience,
Oh
since
yeah. Okay.
we've added such a deep element of culinary to the project.
Hmm.
And as you know, he's incredibly generous
Yeah.
with his time and talent, and product is delicious brisket
Uh-huh. For
as
sure.
well. And so, he had done a number of things that I just said, "Hey, come be a part of this with us." And he calls me and he's telling me, "I want to ask you about this." And he starts laying it out. And I just said, "Chris, let me interrupt. Whatever it is, yes, I'll do it."
Right.
Like, of course I'll do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You're my yes man for incredible causes left and right. And heck yeah, man, I'd be honored to be a part of it. So yeah, so that's what brought me to the festival, and I'm
Yeah.
really excited to be there and to support something that is wonderful for the community, but also I love how much it matters to Christopher, and excited to you know do a little bit of the lift, instead of him always just saying yes for the causes I ask him to be a part of.
Yeah. So hey, you got a lot going on all the time, and really appreciate your generosity sharing this time with us. We'll wrap it up with a question that I want to know. You've got a lot of passion, obviously. Again, you're very busy, a lot of different irons in the fire. What keeps that fire burning? Why do you keep doing it?
Yeah, I think my favorite thing about this business, the hardest part of this business, is being an employer. It's
Mm,
also the part I'm proudest of. So I love employing great people and being there for as much of their growth journey as I can, and then hopefully helping them, figure out what is next. But what I love most about the business is um, you're just never done, and so there's no version of it where you're just getting bored. I can walk in, my job is to walk into these spaces every day and look for the thing that might be ready to evolve a little bit.
mm,
My commitment to my team is to keep these places energized and
mhm,
relevant, versus just sitting back and going, "Hey, we're doing pretty good here. Let's just let it roll." It's just something to me, that feeling of, it will be, I'm almost 18 years in at Pools, and I'll walk in and solve something just in a moment that I've been trying to solve for as long as we've been open. It'll just pop in my head, and that makes it really, really fun, really satisfying and continuously challenging.
And that, my friends, is the final word from Ashley Christensen, the owner and operator from Ashley Christensen Restaurants in Raleigh. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael.
Don't miss your chance to meet Ashley and all the great food minds participating at Pinehurst Barbecue Festival. That's during the Labor Day weekend in the village of Pinehurst. Visit pinehurstbarbecuefestival.com to get tickets while you still can. Complete lineup of events, pitmasters, and food, all there at the website. Of course, you've been listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show on the Mesh.tv network of podcast. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast stream. Share our podcast with your food-loving friends. And be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Don't forget, there's more interviews and blogs at our website, lowslowbbqshow.com. While you're there, sign up for our free newsletter and get the latest barbecue news delivered to your email on Tuesday mornings. Thanks again to our guest today, Ashley Christensen. Thanks as well to the whole team at the Mesh.tv network of podcast, especially our producer, Andrew Moose. Finally, thank you for listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Remember, for the best barbecue and the best barbecue podcast, make it low and slow.